Hello! This is Scout, my new puppy. And I am Emily Stuebing. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a red shirt top. It's an upcycling project, or you could make it from scratch. But either way, it's a great summer top to make, and it's super easy. It only took me a couple of hours to do. So that's what I'm going to show you how to make today. And yeah, I'm going to get to it. So just to give you a little preview of what we're going to be making, I thought I would show you a before and after of the top, so I'm going to pop that in right now. Alright, so that's what the original Salvation Army top looked like that I got for $3.99, and here's how it turned out. One more thing before I get to the tutorial really fast. I realized since I've only ever made one other video, you probably don't know who I am. So just to give you a tiny bit of background, I'm a dual citizen from the US and Germany who grew up in both countries speaking both languages. I know that wasn't an easy process on my parents because I did not want to speak German, but they ignored me when I spoke English, so I really had no choice. Comment below and let me know if you're also a bilingual kid and went through the same thing. It was so annoying, but I'm grateful that they did it because now I work as a freelance translator because I speak German, Spanish, and Portuguese. And I do that remotely, so I spend most of the year traveling. Well, not now, but normally I do. And when I'm abroad, I like to meet with designers who make traditional clothing from their cultures and interview them. So once I can do that again, I'm going to start making some more videos like that to show you guys. But for now, I have tons of tutorials and I'm very much into sustainable fashion. So I'll be doing a lot of upcycling and using like recycled fabrics to make swimwear and whatever other clothes you guys want me to make. If you have recommendations, let me know and I'd be happy to show you how to make it. So I'm going to quit blabbing for now and get started with the tutorial, starting with the materials that you need. Alright, so here is the final product, and here's what you're going to need to make this top. You can do it as an upcycling project like I did, or you can do it out of whatever fabric that you have. The only thing you'll need to make sure to pay attention to is that it's a lightweight fabric, because when you're shirring it, it needs to be very lightweight so that it'll scrunch it up enough. That's the most important thing. And if you're making it from an existing top, you'll want to make sure that it's like 1.5 to 2 times the size that you are around your stomach, just to make sure that when the scrunches up, it still fits you and it isn't too small. So those are 2 important things to note. Also, you're going to need elastic thread. I just got this off of Amazon. It was really cheap and there's a ton of it, so I'll put a link below if you want that. You can normally only find it in black or white, but since it's going to be on the inside of the top, it really doesn't matter. You're also going to need 100% polyester thread or whatever regular thread you have around, and I just use chalk to mark these lines before I sew them to make sure that they're straight. And the last thing that you're going to need is a 1/4 inch elastic, which I sewed this wrong, by the way. This should be between those 2 layers of fabric so that you can't see it, but either way, you're going to need 1/4 inch elastic. And that's all. So the first step will be to cut off the bottom of the shirt. Now you see me pinning here because my fabric was really slippery and I wanted to make sure it didn't move when I was cutting it. So I started by doing that, and then I just used my rotary cutter to cut the bottom off. Now, once you're done doing that with your shirt, you'll see me doing the same thing of pinning the top to make sure it doesn't slide around as I'm cutting. And then I just go ahead and use my rotary cutter and cut off all the way across the top as well. You'll notice that it goes out a little bit at the top under the sleeves, and that's no problem at all. I took that in a little bit after cutting the top off, so if your shirt is the same way, don't worry about that. Just cut off the top first. Next, I used the part that I'd cut off to make a seam at the bottom of the shirt because I didn't want it to get too short. Otherwise, you can also roll it over, but this way I attached the extra fabric and used that to make the seam. So as you can see, I sewed the extra fabric onto the shirt and then I folded it in once, as you can see me doing here, and then once I got that laying flat, I folded it over again. The best way to do this is probably to iron it first, unless you feel really confident about your sewing skills, in which case you can just fold and sew. Now that the hem is done, I'm ready to start on the top part of this. And what I did was I cut out some elastic for the top, and I put it around my chest where it'll lay and figured out what a good size would be without stretching it too much so that I know it'll be comfortable. And next I'm just going to overlap this and sew it together. The next step will be to attach your elastic after you figured out the right size that you want it to be. And this is where I went wrong because I wasn't paying attention. So what you're going to want to do instead of sewing it onto the right side of the fabric is sew it to the wrong side, so inside. That way when you flip it over, it won't be visible. If you do it wrong like I did, it doesn't really matter since it's on the inside of the shirt, but if you want to do things right, then make sure you sew it on the inside and not the outside like me. Then fold it over and sew it again. Next, I'm using my sewing chalk, and I'm going to use that, or I already did here, to mark a straight line all the way across, which I also just used my big ruler to do. That's to make sure that everything is straight when I'm sewing and I don't veer off course. As you can see, I shirred 2 rows, and then I marked 2 other rows to do below that, which I should have done ahead of time because otherwise it gets all scrunched and it's harder to draw a straight line. So mark all your lines first and then shirr all 3 of them. So I did all my shirring. It worked really well because this fabric is so thin and light. And I seam ripped this all open so that I could just sew along there. So the next step will be just to, of course, pin it right sides together and sew that seam closed again. Once I've done that, I am ready to attach the sleeves. Alright, it might look right now like it's not off the shoulder, but it can be. So I made it so you can have it either way, and you can do it the same way. If not, I'll tell you a little modification you can do if you want it to solely be an off the shoulder top. But this way I can wear it whichever way I want. The first step when making your sleeves will be to use the existing fabric that you have and cut it in half evenly. Then I went ahead and I used an old shirt of mine to figure out what the angle of the sleeve should be. Now if you just want to do off the shoulder sleeves and don't care about making it multifunctional, having it on and off, then you can just make that a rectangle instead of a curved line. So here are how the sleeves are looking. Now I'm going to trim this edge with pinking shears. Either that, or you could do something like you could overlock it or do a zigzag stitch, something to keep it from fraying. Then I will fold it over and create a little casing through which I will put this elastic. So here are my sleeves. I decided to do some smocking over at the ends of these 2 to kind of keep things consistent with the rest of the top. So that is all done, and I've created a little casing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to seam rip this little opening right here. Now I'm going to take my elastic and I will attach this to it, and now I'm just going to pull it all the way through. There we go. So let's back out on the other side. I'll even it out a little bit, and at this point I can try it on and see how the sizing is. Once I've done that, I will put these together and sew right there and close it back up again, and then I'll be ready to attach it to the top. Alright, the final step now that you're done with your sleeves will be to attach them to your shirt. As you can see, I've already done it on one side because I wanted to make sure that I was doing it correctly, So what you're going to do is you're going to match those two inside seams up, and I put it a little bit below the top just to give it a little bit of a curve like you naturally do under your arm. So you can do the same thing and then pin it in place. It doesn't need to be very far. And after that, just sew it right on there. And then I cut off the excess fabric on the inside. And now that you've sewn the sleeves in place, you're all done. So just to give you a comparison, here's what the original looks like, and here's the final product.
Walk along that street, we're talking nervously. We closer, won't be long now. You made me write this song, yeah. We safe but don't know how. We far away from town. We talk until we can't no more.
Alright, well that's all I have for you today. I hope you liked this video and I hope that you try it out. And if you do, please let me know and send me photos because I would love to see how it turns out. Also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm really big on sustainable fashion and counteracting the negative impact that fast fashion has on other people and the environment. So if that's something that you want to learn more about, or if you want to find out how you can make a difference, check out my website, Travel Her Style, which I linked below. I have a bunch of tips and information on there for you to see. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you liked this, and if you did, please like and subscribe because I have a ton more videos like this coming your way. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.